Hi everyone, it's Nichol Spohr here today for Simon Says Stamp, and welcome into a video featuring the September 2019 card kit, Look for the Rainbows. This gorgeous card kit is full of all kinds of incredible product for creating rainbow themed cards. I'm going to be using the exclusive Look for the Rainbows 6x8 clear stamp set included in the kit, also available for individual purchase, as well as a sheet of Vicki Boutin mixed media 6x8 pattern paper, that beautiful rainbow design you can see off to the right of the screen. I am stamping up a couple of the flowers, stems, and leaves from the Look for the Rainbows 6x8 clear stamp set using Simon Says Stamp clear embossing ink on Bristol smooth cardstock. We're going to stamp and emboss these images on the Bristol smooth cardstock using white embossing powder and then watercolor with Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. I want my flowers and stems and leaves to kind of have the same color properties as the stripes in my background paper. I played around with several different color combinations and ultimately decided to go with tea rose and scarlet red for my large flower. So that's going to be kind of my more rosish red colored flower. And then we'll use a couple shades of orange for the smaller flower and some lighter greens for the stems and leaves. I'm very carefully and being really conscious to lay down just a tiny bit of my dark scarlet red color around the edges of the design, kind of pulling that color out and blending further around each petal of the flower with my lighter color, and then blending even further with a water brush pen. I filled this pen with water and I'm just simply pulling that water out for that watercolored look. I'm going to continue to do this for each petal on my large flower. You could create as many of these florals as you want to. They are so pretty, and this is a very quick and easy way to add that watercolored effect. I'm kind of following the lines of the stamped and embossed image with my darkest color first, pulling out that color, then again, just like I did with the first two petals, with my lighter tea rose. And I'm simply going to continue to do this until the entire flower is colored. For the center of my flower, I'm going to take mustard and just layer a tiny bit of that mustard color around the edge of the center and then blend out with my water brush pen. Again, this is a different color different color combinations really than I normally use. It was really fun to stretch my creativity and try to find color combinations that would work great with the pattern paper I'm using for the background. Now these stems and leaves that you see on my paper were kind of fails. They do match one of the green stripes somewhat in that pattern paper, but because it's a 6x8 pattern paper, I have to trim it down. And I ended up trimming it down to an area where that darker green stripe isn't seen. And I wasn't loving it. And so I'm actually going to recolor those here in a minute with a color combination that I end up really loving that works fantastic with that yellowish green strip that you can see in the bottom right corner of the screen. For my other flower, I'm using orange and pale orange to color in this bloom. Again, taking my dark color around the edges, pulling out that color with my lighter marker, and then I'll go back to each individual petal with my water brush pen and pull that color out and blend it even more for the beautiful look of each flower petal. I'm making sure to clean off the tip of this water brush pen and my lighter markers often so that I'm not transferring too much of that dark color all over the flower petal. I I really love how these two flowers ended up, and I love the color combinations. I'm going to need to make note of that so that I can use it again for future projects. We've got just a little bit more coloring to do for this flower, and then we'll move on to coloring in the stems and leaves in a different color combination than what you see here. We also need to make sure and color in the center of this flower. I kept it simple by going ahead and using my mustard marker again for this flower center, laying down just a little bit of color and then blending it out with my water brush pen for that two-tone effect. We're going to want to make sure that all of our images sit and completely air dry or hit them with a heat tool before you take some scissors and fussy cut these images. There's also coordinating dies available if you don't want to fussy cut images like I'm going to do today. I'm laying out a little yellow-green, and I'm going to blend out with pale yellow. Again, this is a color combination I've never used before. I tend to go for a little more bright and bold, but that was not what this background paper really called for. I needed something kind of a dirty, limey yellow, really. And these two colors, while really kind of on the right track, are not exactly perfect, but they're going to provide a fantastic base. So once I have added the color to these, I'm actually going to scribble my olive green marker on my glass mat. And I did play around with several different greens trying to find the perfect one. And I'm going to pick that color up with my water brush pen and just dab it in place on my leaves, on the stem, and not shown on camera, but I did actually stamp a third leaf and color it in just like I did here so that I end up having 3 leaves total. When I go to put the card together, you're going to see why I needed that. Next, I've trimmed down my background to 4 inches by 5 1/4. I'm going to place a little picket fence distress paint on my work surface, water it down with a little water, and then pick it up with a paintbrush and just tap it all over the surface. I actually grabbed a scrap box that I had from some product a package I recently opened, and that's going to protect my work surface from splatters. I didn't feel like doing a huge cleanup, so I went ahead and just used a box for that. I'm going to let that sit and completely dry before I take my background and I want to stamp some sentiments from that Over the Rainbows stamp set in the bottom right corner. I've also, off camera, fussy cut my flowers, stems, and leaves. I am going to stamp my sentiments using the MISTI so that I can be sure to get them lined up exactly where I want them to go, as well as stamp them multiple times if I need to. Neither of these sentiments had been used before, and I wanted to make sure I got a really good stamped impression. With the white embossed outline of these flowers and leaves, I wanted to use white embossing for my sentiment as well. I felt that the white would really pop off of the colorful background perfectly. We're going to take some Simon Says Stamp white detail embossing powder, sprinkle it on those sentiments, and then heat emboss with our heat tool. I combined 2 of the sentiments from the stamp set. There's actually quite a few different ones in this stamp set, as well as butterflies, a floral arch, and several bird images. So there's lots of options for creating some really fun designs. Now that I've stamped and embossed my sentiment, it's time to put it all together. I'm going to raise up my flowers with some foam adhesive squares so that they really pop off the background. When I'm working with a busy background like this striped pattern paper, I often like to lift up the elements with a little foam adhesive so that they stand out more than they would if they were lying flat. The stems, though, are so dainty and thin, I didn't want to try to manipulate foam adhesive to the back of those. So I will be gluing the stems and leaves directly to the background. I want to make sure that my foam adhesive isn't under the part of the flower that overlaps the one we've already added foam adhesive to. I also want to make sure that it kind of dips down and helps frame up our stamped and embossed sentiment. Using some craft tweezers, I'm going to go ahead and pick up my stem, place some glue tube Lawn Fawn liquid adhesive on the back, and then glue those stems in place, positioning them with the tweezers. A pair of craft tweezers is an invaluable tool when you're trying to place things exactly where you want them to go. We're going to go ahead and glue our leaves in place right along the stems. This is where I decided to go ahead and stamp a third leaf so that one of the flowers actually has 2 leaves and one has 1. It fills in the area a little bit better, and I also like that there is an odd number. Where we have 2 flowers, 2 stems, and 2 leaves, the 3 leaves really balances it out a little bit better. Once we've done that, I'm going to go ahead and put adhesive on a white top fold card base, adhere my card to that card base, trim off any excess that's hanging off the edge, and our card featuring this September 2019 card kit of the month for Simon Says Stamp called Look for the Rainbows is all finished. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Please be sure to check out the Simon Says Stamp blog for more information. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.